Hey everyone, and welcome to another sort of recent reading wrap up, that kind of thing. The original plan was to do one of these every time I read about 5 books. I suck at that apparently. So since I filmed my last one, I've read about 10 books and not got round to filming a wrap up of them. So it might be that I switch to monthly. We might not. We'll see how it goes. But I'm apparently not very good at wrapping up after 5. Although admittedly I've zoomed through quite a lot of these books really quickly, so I don't know, I've just been on a roll with reading. But here are the books that I've read recently and my thoughts. So the first book I'm going to chat about was one from my TBR video. It was Inborn by Thomas Enger. So this one I read as an audiobook. And it was described as what? A taut and chilling thriller, I think, was how it was described. It sounded like it would be fairly decent. Basically, the concept is that there's been a double murder at a Norwegian high school. And the general thought is that one victim, a female victim, was the intended target, and the second victim was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and was killed trying to leave after seeing something he should not have seen. The book is written from mainly perspectives of the detective. I want to say his name is Inver? Terrible. I think that was his name. And so he's an older policeman, and he's looking into the murders, and he obviously is just questioning the victims. He's questioning the victims' families, looking into the suspicious characters around town, anyone that could be involved. Your standard police just element, basically. He's had a loss in his own life and is a bit distracted by memories of his recently deceased wife. So that's an odd element of the book. I don't really know why it was there, unless it's something that continues on or maybe made sense some other way. I'm not sure if this is a book in a series. The other point of view is of the prime suspect, who is Even. And he was the ex-boyfriend of the female victim, so they kind of just assumed, oh well, he's probably killed her. And then the other guy, unfortunately, saw too much. So his point of view is obviously he says he's innocent, and he's getting harassed by his friends from school and online abuse, and he just doesn't feel like anyone believes him, but he's adamant that he's innocent. Although it just doesn't look all that great for him, like he forgot to say he was somewhere or he blacked out or something like that. Basically, evidence kind of is pointing to him, but he's just adamant that it wasn't him. And it goes all the way to him talking in court when he's being spoken to by the prosecution. And we all say, basically the blurb on the back is like, can we trust him? Is he a reliable narrator? Is he actually the killer and he's just lying? Or is he the killer and he doesn't remember? Or is he innocent? So we kind of go into it knowing that what he says is possibly not true. So you kind of are listening for anything that makes him, oh, is it this, is it that? Yeah, I mean, even describing this book to you, I sound bored. I was bored. It's like, it was fine. It didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't terrible, but as you can probably get from my complete lack of interest in talking about this book, it was just a snore. I figured out most of what happened, kind of. It all made sense when it wrapped up, really. What to say about it? I just didn't care. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the killer. I didn't care about anything. I didn't find anyone particularly, like, you weren't rooting for anyone. I didn't care if he did it. I didn't care. I wasn't really shocked by the outcome. But that's not an issue. I mean, I often read books where I figure things out maybe ahead of time, or you know going in what it was, and it's just other characters trying to figure it out. I wasn't bothered that I figured out most of it out. It just, the way it was written was just dull. I just didn't get excited about it, and I'm still not excited about it. Some people might really like this book, but for me, I need to care about the characters, whether that's because I really like them and I'm rooting for them, or I can't stand them. I need something. And the characters here were just so uninteresting. I just didn't find myself caring about anyone. Considering, I mean, the first chapter, I would say the first chapter of this was good. It was unexpected how it was done. And the first chapter, I was like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be interesting. I've never read a book that started this way. But then after that, I was reading it for so long. I was reading this book for ages. I basically just did like 20 minutes twice a day, like to and from the yard, and back on for 20 minutes if I was driving. And I didn't care enough to listen to it at any other point. I pushed through when I was about to lose it from the library. But yeah, let's just stop talking about this one now. This one, I think I gave it 3 stars because I couldn't really fault it. I felt really mean giving it a 2 star because it wasn't bad, but it was just so beyond average. So yeah, I can't say I would recommend this one. I mean, some people might like it, but just not for me, not my cup of tea. Didn't relate to anyone. That's basically my thoughts on there. So the next book that I read was far more interesting. This was Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams. Lots of people have been speaking about this book. I think it just came out this year or end of last year. I think it was this year? I can't remember. But it's much better than the last one. I think I gave it a 5 star. It was 4 or 5 stars. I can't remember which I gave it in the end. It was surrounding the life of Queenie, who is a young black woman living in London, and she works, I think, is it a newspaper or a kind of an online news website, something like that. The Daily Read, I think it was called. So it's just her and her friends, and basically she was going out with this white guy called Tom. She doesn't like to date black guys, she dates white guys, so she was going through like a break. Things weren't going so well in her relationship, and they decided to take a break, and she's not dealing with it very well. She doesn't want to be on a break. She wants to go back to the way things were, and is trying to contact him and convince him that let's just give this another go, and he's like, no, we need to leave it more time. And she just goes into a pit basically of bad decisions. She takes comfort in the arms of incredibly unsuitable men that treat her like crap, that I don't think she even is really aware of how crap they treat her. Her friends get increasingly worried about her because of the way she's just dealing with life, and her mental health is suffering, and actually her job suffers. Yeah, she makes bad choices and can't see the way out of things, and she can't really see how badly things are going to turn out when she makes the decision. It's one of those books where you're just watching someone self-destruct, and you're like, please stop doing this, don't do it, you know that's going to end badly. But it was so compelling to read. It was so well written. I'm pretty sure, I listened to that as an audiobook as well, and the narrator was fantastic. She did different voices and accents for the different characters, and they were so well done. They were brilliant. I would definitely recommend the audiobook if you're going to read this one. It was really good. Queenie was such a likeable character despite her screw ups. She was clearly intelligent, clearly caring, and yet still went down this path that you were just like, don't do it. But I suppose so many women do go down this path, so many men probably do as well. So yeah, her life just goes down the toilet basically, and she's got to hit rock bottom before things start to get better. Such a good book. I loved the family element involved. I loved her relationship with her friends. She has this little this little WhatsApp group, I think, called the Corgis. So it's like Queenie and the Corgis. Just remembering this book makes me smile. Although it was like, it's one of those, you were feeling so much for her, and wanting her to get her handle on things and wanting her life to improve. All the characters were relatable. You could foresee yourself, you could envision yourself in these situations, basically. So yeah, this was a really, really good read. I recommend it to everyone. It's very relevant at the minute with the Black Lives Matter movement going on. It's discussed a bit in the book, and I think she deals really well with like the casual racism that I think everyone's really used to, and it's one of those things that it's kind of scary how used to these things we are. I mean, obviously as a white person, I'm seeing it from a different angle, and I wouldn't class myself as racist. Obviously, that's disgusting. But there's certain things that I never questioned, or maybe used to and didn't react to. And then you're in the character mindset of this black woman, and having these people speak to her this way, or treat her a certain way, or belittle her thoughts and feelings, and I was enraged. I was like, how dare they do this? How dare they speak to her like this? She is a person. She's not this dog that they just treated her so badly. And it was just casual, and it was just like they didn't realize what they were saying was completely inappropriate. And I'm like, oh my god, that's horrendous. Like, we need to not, it just shouldn't be this ingrained that things like that are okay. Yeah, I think everyone needs to read this. Everyone needs to read this. And I think Queenie's a relatable person, whether you're looking at it from the Black Lives Matter thing, or you're just looking at it from a girl, because that's all she is. She's a girl in London, and this is her life, and I think everyone could relate to her, really. But yeah, no, you really need to read this one. This is a good one. It deserves the hype. I think it's won an award. It's such a good book, and it's not something that I would normally pick up, and I only actually picked it up because of BookTube, and I'm glad I did, because it was such a good read. The next one I'm going to speak about is another one from my TBR. was pretty good at sticking to my TBR. So yeah, this one was Dark Bites by Sherrilyn Kenyon. I do have the book in print, but where is it? Oh, I do actually have it. It's here. I was going to wait to say that I couldn't be bothered going to get the book, because I had a feeling it was still on my nightstand, but it wasn't. It's right here. So yeah, this one is a collection of short stories within the Dark Hunter universe. It's a really big series. So there's like 11 sort of novellas, short stories set within the Dark Hunter world. I really enjoyed it. It was good. It's despite the fact that it's, kind of massive. I really enjoyed reading this. I just kind of sat down and read like one or two stories at a time. They were really short. Some of them were so good, like really good, and I'm really glad that the characters got a story. Obviously none of these characters are main ones. The main ones obviously get their own full-length novel. But these are characters that appear sort of in the main series. So there's a shifter family, the Catalakis shifter family. So one of the brothers was in this, and which was nice to read more about him and his backstory, because we didn't really find out 100% about it in his book. So there was one about a goddess and a warrior that fell in love, and that was really good. There was a couple that were a bit random, and I don't really understand who the characters were and why they got a story. So I'm assuming they appear somewhere in the main series, because if they don't, I really don't get it. So there was like two or three, I think, that were a bit like, what's this about? I don't know where it fits in. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But they were the ones I didn't enjoy as much. But overall, I think I gave it about 4 stars. It was really good. It wasn't like a full-length novel where you get really sucked in and love the characters as much. You can't do that much in 50, 100 pages, some of these were. But I liked the ones where I already knew of the characters, and you just kind of jumped into their life and got a little look. The ones where I didn't know the characters and all I got was the short story, I'm like, is that it? I don't know, it's not enough. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the book. I would definitely not read this one before reading the main series. I think you need to read the main series before you look into these books, because there were some spoilers in there. So if you were just starting out or you're in the middle, there are some things mentioned in the book that are very large plot points that you definitely don't want to know about before they happen. So definitely leave this one till after the end of the series, or check somehow like where the individual stories fit in, maybe. Because I mean, I knew about them because I've read most of the series already. There was nothing that shocked me. But if I'd read this book at the start, which I think it might be suggested that it should be read like as book 0, but definitely don't do that. It will ruin the series for you. But it was a good book to read, having read quite a lot of the books. So yeah, that was a good read. So another one from my TBR, I'm so proud of how well I stick to this TBR, was Am I Normal Yet by Holly Bourne. I love Holly Bourne's books, I think they're great. So this one is number 1 in the Spinster Club series. So basically it follows a girl called Evie who has OCD. And had a major sort of breakdown at the end of secondary school, and is now going to college. And she doesn't want to be the girl that had a breakdown. She doesn't want to be the girl that was crazy. She's going to college, and I think one of her best friends is going along with her. Basically, she wants to reinvent herself. She doesn't want to be the crazy girl that everyone said she was in school. She wants to make some new friends, be normal, have a boyfriend, not be known for her mental state, basically. And her OCD is really severe at times, so she's going to see a therapist, a counsellor. She's reducing her medication, which is obviously like has to be done incrementally, so you get little diary entries of her reducing her medication, and she's chatting with her counsellor, and just basically she just wants to be normal, and it's just, I suppose it raises the question of what is normal. And is it a case of, do you just do these things to fit in, do what everyone expects you to do, or do you do what makes you happy? Or she's just finding her feet. And as much as I don't have OCD personally, I have struggled with anxiety. I could say if it's an accurate portrayal, as I don't know enough about it, but it felt like it would be. It felt like a fair example of what it would be like. It's one of the things that she says all the time is she hates how people would be like, oh yeah, I've got to have all my pens straight, I've got OCD. And it's like, yeah, that's not OCD. That's not what it's like to have it. Her behaviours are so much more compulsive than someone liking their pens straight, or someone liking things tidy, or things like that. She's so much more severe. She puts herself at risk when she's having a really bad bout or relapse. It was just so well done. She makes a couple of really good friends, and they bond over rotten dating experiences, which I think we can all relate to. Everyone's got a sucky dating story. Yeah, it was really funny and heartwarming, and it was just one of those characters, you just really wanted her to find her feet. I mean, definitely when I was younger, I worried so much about what other people thought, and I just don't give a crap anymore. And I'm much happier for it. I just do what I want to do. I don't care what people think is normal or whatever. I'm just me. And it's kind of like, you want her to find that, she doesn't want to tell her friends that she had this problem, and that this problem is starting to come back with her reducing her medication and having these new experiences and triggers and things. And it's so good. It's so good. I can't wait to read more of her books. I would recommend them to everyone if I could. Please read these books, they're so good. I think she's got a new one out, Pretending. It's called Pretending, this year. It's not related to this series, but I really want to read that too. So I'm just going to try and make my way through Holly Bourne books the way they'll be featuring quite a lot, I think. They always make me smile. They're just such good books, like feel-good books, but they deal with really serious issues as well. And yeah, she's just awesome. So definitely recommend this one. I think I gave it a 5-star. If it wasn't, it was 4.5 or 5 stars. It was really highly anyway. it's, as you can probably tell, I love this book. I want to read it. The next few books I'm going to talk about is the reason that my recent reads count is so high. I started rereading a series. It's the Maeve Kerrigan series by Jane Casey. So I started listening to these. I've listened to all the audiobooks so far. I think there's about 8 of them. And we had a trip coming up, and we decided to, me and my boyfriend, listen to these together. So we listened to them like if we're driving about or in the house. So we were having a long drive, and we decided to start listening to these books again. Yeah, we've been flying through them, basically. So the first one is called The Burning Man, and this one introduces DC Maeve Kerrigan and her team. So there's her, and there's another DC Rob Langton. You get a bit of his point of view. It's mostly written from Maeve's point of view, and you get a bit of his point of view, and because he's sort of her closest friend on the team. And there's a bit of a, will they be, is there a bit of a spark there between those two? So yeah, this one's The Burning Man, and it's about a killer who, he basically attacks women and beats them and burns them, and it's really horrific. So I think there's been 4 bodies found, and the story starts as they're looking into this 4th body. There's a potential 5th body. And then they go and look into it, and that's kind of where the story kicks off. So they're trying really hard to find this Burning Man serial killer. The media's really on top of it, and they're feeling a lot of pressure, and they're just waiting for him to strike again, and they can't find any evidence, and they're just, so they start looking into the fifth body that's found, that's been burned, and this is of I can't remember what her second name was, but the victim was called Rebecca, and she obviously is this 5th victim. So Maeve gets tasked with looking into her particular case. And another point of view that we hear of in this book, I've like I say, I think I said I listened to them all as audiobooks, is Rebecca's best friend Louise. So she tells us more about the past between her and Rebecca, things like that. It's such a good book. I love this series so much. I highly recommend this series. So yeah, that I don't want to say any more. I don't want to spoil it. I read this for the first time a couple of years ago, and I looked at my Goodreads review of it, and I remember saying that I'd figured out the killer pretty quickly, and I have a terrible memory, so I couldn't remember who did it, but then I remembered, I figured it out again, and I was like, oh yeah, I obviously figured it out quickly again. I can't believe how much I forget in books. It's insane. But so it doesn't bother me. I don't think it matters that you have a very strong suspicion of who it is, and I don't think that matters. There's so much different parts of the book, and you're waiting for them to figure things out, and I think you're meant to know a bit more than they do. I'm not sure, but it doesn't bother me that I figured it out quickly. And then there's another aspect of Maeve's personal life in it as well. Her relationship with her family and things like that. It's a really good book. I wasn't sold on Maeve, how I felt about her in this book, but she grows on you. She definitely grows on you. So don't dismiss the series if you're not sold on her as a character, because she definitely grows on you as the series goes on. I think this is a 4-star read for me. So after reading The Burning, we moved straight on to the next book, The Reckoning. So in this one, there's a new DS started, Josh Derwent, and he ends up working with Maeve quite a bit. There is no there is no other way of describing him. He's an arsehole. He's an absolute arsehole. He treats her like crap. He dismisses women. He's just not someone you can imagine enjoying working with. Oh my god, Josh, what a character he is. But according to the team leader, it's Superintendent Godley. He's a good cop. He's just a bit hard to take sometimes, but he's worth his place on the team, is basically what the guy in charge says to Maeve when she gets stuck with him. But he's an arse. There's no other way around it. He's just not a nice guy in this book. But the murder aspect of this book is that there's another serial killer, and this time they're targeting convicted paedophiles. So they're being killed in horrible ways that kind of reflect their crime, like a guy convicted of watching child pornography had his eyes gouged out, I think, or cut out, and then there was one that had been convicted of raping a child, and his parts were chopped off. Things like that. So like not nice killings, definitely. But the victims obviously are not exactly people that garner a hell of a lot of sympathy. You know, and it's like they're obviously doing their best to find out who the killer is, but they're a bit like, it's pedophiles, like, who cares? But Maeve's like, you know, regardless of what they've done, they deserve to have their killer found. Like, you can't have someone going around doing this even if you don't think the victims are worthy of protection or whatever. So it's an interesting, I love the plot of this one. The plot of this one's really good, and it seems like it's one thing and it turns into something else totally different. But yeah, it's a really good book. I love this book, and the sarcasm from D.I. Derwent is just oh my god. Yeah, no, this is such a good book. I love it. You need to read this one. I can't say much because obviously it's part of a series and you can't wreck it, but it's such a good book. And after The Reckoning, we went straight on to The Last Girl. Like I said, we've been powering through these. They're such good books, and you just want to keep reading. It's so good. So The Last Girl is Josh and Maeve again. They're looking into a murder of this prosecutor's wife and daughter. Now, the prosecutor has, you know, he's really good at his job, basically, and he's gotten people off that probably should not have been let off. He, you know, he's not the most likeable of characters, but obviously it's not great that his wife and daughter have been killed. He has a bit of a complicated personal life. He's cheated on his wife in the past, although she had no intention of leaving him because of it, things like that. So yeah, you get a good look into his life and his job, and they speak to his clients, the ones that were really unhappy, either that he'd gotten someone off or that he hadn't gotten them off, basically. You speak to his old clients to see if any of them had the motive to kill him, which, you know, there's a few people that probably didn't have a great liking for the guy, but it was like, that would they be angry enough to do what they did? Yeah, again, I can't really say too much. I don't want to give out anything away. Another great book. The one thing I love about these books, the one thing I love about them is that they're like a safe bet. I love them. They're really good. You don't have like this great book and then a blip, and then a great book and then a blip. Like, they're all like on the same kind of level. They're really good. They're really solid reads. And at this point, you know, Josh is still a dick, but Maeve and him have got like a pretty good teamwork going at the minute. Like, they work well. They're like yin and yang. They, you know, he's the obnoxious one that you can't really predict what he's going to go off and do, and she's a lot more on the straight and narrow, but she's very clever, and she's, you know, she can handle him, and their team work is interesting to observe. And yeah, I definitely would say to continue with this series, of course. The next one is The Stranger You Know, and this is one of my favourites of the series that I've read. It's very different in the fact that they're looking at a serial killer, but it potentially relates to a case from like 20 years ago. And the problem with the case from 20 years ago is that Josh Derwent was a suspect. Now, he was cleared, but the murder was never found from that killing. And there were certain people that were adamant that he was the one who was guilty. He was the boyfriend of the girl that died 20 years ago. But he had an alibi, and but despite that, people were just saying, no, it was definitely him. It was absolutely him. So when the murders start happening that resemble the murder from 20 years ago, Josh obviously immediately makes a connection between these murders and the one of his ex-girlfriend, and he wants to look into it. What he doesn't know to start with is that they are kind of looking into the connection, but obviously because he was a suspect, he can't be involved, and this drives him nuts. So Maeve ends up being the one that looks into the murder from 20 years ago, and you learn so much more about Josh and why he is the way he is, and yeah, you see a different side to him. You see a very different side to him. He's still an arsehole, but you see his softer side. You see that he's not all bad. He's a very complicated guy. Definitely irritating, definitely got a lot of flaws, but you learn a lot more about him, and yeah, this book is just one of my favourites. So the last of this series that I'm going to talk about, this is the fifth one that we got through so quickly, is The Kill, and this one is basically someone's targeting policemen. So there's been a lot of murders of coppers, so everyone's really on edge and not wanting to, be on their own and things like that. So they're looking into why someone would want to target police, essentially, in this one. A big focus of this one is the ongoing issues in Maeve's personal life, which again I can't do too much details in, but she's going through a lot as well, and her personal life suffers a very large blip in this book particularly, and I can't really say too much more. There's so many threads going on in this series now that have started in earlier books that I can't really say anything about, because obviously if you hear me talking about this one before you've read the first one, it defeats the purpose. But it's another solid book in the series that I really enjoy. Yeah, definitely read it. This is book 5 in, and they're just all as good as each other. They're definitely a good solid series to read. I'll stop rambling about that series now and finish off with one more book to finish off this recent read, Wives by Tarryn Fisher. So this one I got from my library, as I get a lot of these books, and it had a really interesting concept. So this book was written from the point of view of Thursday, strange name, but she is married to Seth. But Seth is also married to 2 other women. So Seth's a polygamist from a family of polygamists, and he married his first wife, and then she didn't want children, so him and his wife agreed that he could marry someone else so that he could have children. So illegally he divorced his first wife, because you can't be a bigamist. But so he was still with her, and then he married Thursday. Thursday then couldn't have children, so he is now with Hannah. Now I think Thursday is still the legal wife, the main character, but obviously he has these 2 other wives. It's like this plural marriage situation. So how could you not want to read that and figure out what on earth's going on? So I find the idea of polygamy horrendous. I know some cultures do it, and I shouldn't speak on things I don't really know about, but the idea of being in a relationship with a man who is married to other women is repellent. I could not do that. I think, no. Very much on the monogamy front here. But it was like I had to read it. I was compelled to find out what this was like. I mean, obviously it's fiction, but I was just like, right, where's the author going to go on this one? And when I first started reading it, I was so hooked. It's a really easy and direct writing style. Like you dive right in. Thursday is, like I say, the legal wife, but she also kind of feels like the spare part, because she was obviously married. I mean, Seth says he loves all these women, but she was married because she was going to be the one to give him children, and then can't, and then she's like, well, the first wife was the original love, the new wife's the one who's going to be the baby maker, so she wants to be the most fun, the most sexually pleasing, the most, the one that he can complain about his other wives too. She wants to one-up them, so that she feels more secure in this arrangement. And like, you can understand that, like, you would want to make it so that you had a role, I guess. The whole situation is just utterly insane in my opinion, but I mean, I suppose these things do happen. But yeah, so the wives have never met each other, and the arrangement is that they don't meet each other, and they don't know about the other people's lives. So I think 2 live in Seattle and 1 lives in Portland, I think. Or is it 2 in Portland and 1 in Seattle? I can't remember. Basically, they live in different houses. It's not like a group situation where there's the husband and several wives live in the same house, which I think that's what his family did. This time around, he has them in different areas, and like he spends a certain number of days of the week with each wife. Like I say, this whole thing is just bonkers to me. So yeah, and I sped through it. It started off being really, really fascinating, like in a car crash kind of way. It's like, how could you choose to live this way? Like, her mom and her friends don't know that she is in a plural marriage, and it's just insane. So I was really thinking, oh yeah, this is going to be like a 5-star book. I'm going to love it. I was loving it. And then came the twist. Oh, the twist. Like, some people might not mind the direction that this book took. I found it crap. Of all the ways she could have gone with this one, I don't know why this is the way that she went. The author, I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way, but it's just like, the level of originality for me was like, oh, I woke up and it's all a dream. Which is obviously not the twist, but it just felt like that. It just be like, really? You set it all up and that was the twist? I just didn't like it. And it made it all the more, it made it go from this thing where I felt like it was something that could happen to something I'm like, oh, that's rubbish. And then it became more and more ridiculous. And obviously once it all wraps up at the end and you think back on things and you're like, okay, that all fitted in and that made sense, and I think it did. I think it did all fit together. But I was so disappointed in this one. I just, why did she have to go that way? I didn't like that. And I can't say what it is. I mean, maybe it's obvious what it is. I don't know. I can't say what it is because I don't want to ruin it if you do decide to read this book. I gave it 3 stars because the first part was so good. But I was going to give it 5 stars. If I didn't hate the twist the way I hated it, it would have gotten 5 stars. I can't say I liked any of the characters. I thought the husband was horrible. I thought the main character, I thought she was daft for allowing this situation in the first place. I couldn't understand the other characters for allowing this situation. I didn't see the... I mean, it all kind of started to go wrong when she broke the rules and started to look into the other wives out of curiosity, a bit of jealousy, that kind of thing. But yeah, it just went away. I really didn't want it to go. It was so cliche. I hated the ending. I just feel like it wasn't. It kind of made the twist. How do I say this without wrecking it? I don't know how I say this without spoiling the twist. I just don't think it was well handled. And yeah, I'm a bit sad about it, to be honest. I don't like the way this book went. I've said that about 20 times because I'm trying to say it in a way that doesn't give it away. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. I'm not going to give it 1 star because of how much I hated the ending and the resolution of it, because the first part was really good and I think I had a lot of potential and I really enjoyed it to start with. And even once the twist happened, as much as I didn't like the twist and I was like, oh god, I still flew through it because I wanted to know how it was going to end, because it kind of did a twist and then it did another twist and then it went a different way, and I was like, okay, what is going to happen here? What is going to happen? And I had to know. So the writing is always so good in the fact that it draws you in and you had to know what was going to happen. So from that perspective, it was really good. I can't give it higher than 3 because of how disappointed I am in the direction it went. But it was well written and I enjoyed it. So, like I say, it got the 3. I don't know if I'd recommend it or not. I feel like I probably wouldn't recommend it, just for that reason. It annoyed me too much. But yeah, that's how I felt about that one. I feel like if you've read that one, if you've read The Wives, message me or comment down below or something so we can have a chat about it. That would be great. I want to know what other people's feelings are about that one. If I'm just overreacting to it, or other people didn't like it, or I looked at the Goodreads reviews and I think my opinion is fair along with the other ones. I think other people didn't like the turn it took the same way that I did, so I think that's fair. But yeah, give us a comment if you've read that one. I would really like to know your thoughts for that one. So that is all of the books I'm going to speak about today. I feel like I've been speaking for ages. My voice is starting to suffer a little bit. If you like this video, give it a like and maybe subscribe for some more bookish content coming soon. And hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!